Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Science You Had Me at Hello. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Melissa Rancourt, and I am the founder of G4G. And when I think about what we have in store today, and when I think about the special people we're about to introduce you to, the word innovation comes to mind. So this broadcast has been created as a way to inspire the next generation in science, also to inspire any generation in science, including myself. And how do we do that? We ask awe-inspiring speakers to come from different roles to share their stories. And we use the word science, right? In fact, you might even notice it's kind of like a movie line, "You had me at hello," very familiar. But we do have that word science. What we mean by that is actually a much bigger word. So science for us comprises everything. It's connected to our everyday, and it is about what we call STEM as well: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But it's also even more than that. It's discovery and curiosity and everything that makes it possible for us to be here. It's what connects us to what inspires us every day. So we're going to learn all about that. And first of all, who are we? Well, we're here at Greenlight for Girls. We're headquartered here in Brussels. We also have a US company as well. And we are here all about STEM and science. And we do events all around the world. And we love meeting so many people to inspire them to continue their studies and to pursue careers in STEM. And I have a special shout out to the G4G team who are behind the scenes right now. And for some of you who've been to our G4G events, you know them because you've seen them out in front. And that is Alexandra, Indra, Marie, and Lucy. And also I know we have Thaisa online. We have one of our special ambassadors, Julia, and also plenty more. And we also have our great partner, AIG. And with that, we're going to introduce you to a number of people from AIG as well. So a special shout out to one of our AIGs, what we call superstars, our partnership contact, Sarah. It's such a pleasure to be here with everyone all together, but also with everyone who is just coming into the call now. Those of you who might be looking afterwards, it is an amazing group. I think we have 90 people showing up today. And what's wonderful, of course, is where we're all coming from. So a number of people from Europe, and particularly in the UK, but also Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, Spain, but also more than that: US, India, Brazil, Canada, Cameroon, Iran, Indonesia, Mexico, Oman, and the Philippines. And if I've forgotten your country, in fact, you can tell us that in the chat. So with that, it's my pleasure to invite 4 great awe-inspiring individuals to the stage. And I'm going to start by bringing to the stage Merritt Moore. So Merritt is someone that, we've known from G4G for such a long time. But then also, Merritt is a great individual that whenever someone comes to me and says, you know, I'm not quite sure if I want to study science or if I want to do one of my other interests, and then I say, oh, I know the perfect person you should speak to. So a physicist and a dancer. I love those combinations together. In fact, what she mentioned she's currently doing is creating a duet between human dancer and industrial robotic arm. I don't know about you, but I want to know more. So I'm going to tell you a few things about Merritt, and then I'm going to turn to our next speaker. So Merritt graduated in physics from Harvard, and she graduated with a PhD in atomic and laser physics from the University of Oxford. She also pursues, and continues to do so, a professional ballet career with Zurich Ballet, Boston Ballet, English National Ballet, and the Norwegian National Ballet. In fact, I usually have to ask her first what country she's talking to me in, because she's traveling all over the place. She was one of the 12 selected candidates to undergo an amazingly rigorous astronaut selection on the BBC show, which you may have seen, called Astronauts, Do You Have What It Takes? And we love the fact that she has been featured in the Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. Welcome, Merritt. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
All right.
Yay. So much for having me. This is a party.
All right. I am going to bring more of us to the stage. So I'm going to ask Peta Killian to join us. And she knows all about the numbers. In fact, we're going to ask her because she brings data to life every day. Hi, Peta. And she does that through visualization. So if there's a career that you were thinking about, I want to build 2 things, and especially if I like mathematics, how do I make that come alive? Peta's definitely the person to talk to. And she joined the insurance industry in 2009. And she started her career as a marine underwriter, which we're going to ask her what that means, and spent 8 years at MS Amlin and Brit Insurance. She then made the career move away and joined the strategy and innovation team at MS Amlin, when she worked on digital strategy. And then, since then, she's been on the operations team at Lloyd's Market Association. And she works with Lloyd's Lab and the Future at Lloyd's team. And she's recently joined Talbot's Index Innovation and Strategy team as an analyst. So thank you, Peta, for being here today. All right, I'm going to bring over to the stage Nicola Ratchford. And Nicola is a storyteller, and she gets a chance to bring the communication to life for AIG. And it's such a pleasure to have here today. We get a chance to see Nicola often. We get a chance to do AIG events around the world. And she gets a chance to be able to lead the marketing and communications in the UK. She's been at AIG for 5 years, and she's responsible for their brand, communications, sponsorship, CSR, social media, digital media activities. So if you are interested in any of those things and see how that's connected to a company, she's a great person to ask. She started her career as a journalist after graduating from the London School of Economics. And she has a 9-year-old son, an 8-year-old daughter, 2 dogs, a husband, and a vegetable patch. She does put it in that order, so that's great to know. All right, Nicola, welcome.
Thank you.
And now, last speaker I'm bringing on for today is Emma Bordogna. So Emma is an engineer. So Emma and I are connected in that way. But Emma's role is amazing. It's related to oil and petrochemical risk engineer. So she loves to work with people from so many different backgrounds around the world, and she tries to figure out risk for them. And she has a different situation every day she has to deal with. So this will be a great thing to ask her also in her breakout room when we hear a day in the life of each of our speakers. Emma has a master's in chemical engineering and biotechnology. She's worked in design, research, and development. She's worked in technical sales, startup, and she's worked with the downstream oil industry. And then that was before she joined a major international insurer as a risk engineer. She gets to travel worldwide with her clients, and she gets to share best practices on dealing with the oil and petrochemical industry. Welcome, everyone. It's amazing to have you. Thank you for being here. So what I'm going to get a chance to do is I'm going to get a chance to ask you an important question, because when we put this broadcast together, it was an idea of what is that gets us to where we are today? You know, what is that spark or that moment was like, aha, that's it. And it could be related directly with science, could be related to something that just created discovery and curiosity. For me, as just a quick intro, I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm also an educator, and those 3 things came together in so many ways, and there are so many different things around my life that encouraged me to go in different directions. One of them being creating Greenlight for Girls, which has been such a pleasure to be able to do and see all this great inspiration come to life and get a chance to meet speakers like we have today. So I'm going to turn this over, but first, before I ask about this one question that sparked where you are today, I'm going to turn this over to Nicola, because we get a chance to work with AIG as one of our most special partners. We get a chance to really have fun with the science behind insurance. But Nicola, would you like to say a few words to get us started today?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks very much, Melissa. It's great to be here with such amazing speakers, and it's lovely to be here with so many girls from all over the world. So thanks for joining. I can't see you all yet, but I imagine if I asked for a show of hands from all of you to ask who understands what insurance does, I'm imagining I wouldn't see many hands. So that's fine. I'm just going to explain to you really quickly. AIG is a big insurance company. And I'll explain to you as simply as I can, because simple is all I do. I'll explain to you very simply what an insurance company does. Essentially, it's about risk. So we try and assess other people's risks. And then, in a sense, we take a gamble with them. We make a financial bet with them that we will pay out if something goes wrong, and they pay us a premium every month. So, for example, you might have a lovely iPhone, you might decide that you want to pay a few pounds per month, and that will cover you if you accidentally drop it down the toilet. And you will think that maybe £2 a month is worthwhile doing. We have to assess the likelihood of you dropping your iPhone down the toilet, and that would depend on the sort of person you are. So maybe most of you are probably quite sensible, wouldn't do that. If you're me, it might be a more regular occurrence. So I might have to pay a higher premium than you. It's about risk and it's about probability. That's mobile phones, but actually at AIG we will do, as I'm sure the other ladies on the call will tell you, we also insure aeroplanes in the sky, satellites that get launched, oil rigs, cargo ships. All of these things need insurance. They're all at risk, and those are the bets that we're taking every day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nicola. And it's such a great example of how, especially in insurance, science is connecting to every single aspect. And it's all there in front and behind the scenes. And also, it's a big piece of what we're talking about today, which is innovation. So I know that's going to come out in some of the stories along the way, and certainly some of the discussions. But let's get to it. I'm going to grab and each of you and ask you about that one moment that said, this is why I want to do what I do. I'm actually going to first go to Emma. Emma, could you tell us, I know I'm going out of order. Emma, could you tell us, like, what is that story that comes to mind when I say, what was the moment?
Hi, everyone. My first moment when science had me, I think, was when I was maybe 13 and at senior school. And we had to write an experiment. So we had to do the hypothesis and the predictions, and then we had to work out the method of the experiment, and going through. And I asked my cousin for help because he's older than me. He was into science, and I asked him for help, and he started taking me through how we do all these things. And we got to hypothesis, and I said, this could be one way or it could be the other. Which one do I choose? Which one's going to get me the right answer? Which one's going to get me the correct mark? And he said, well, that's science, isn't it? Sometimes it's not the right answer. You can go all the way through the steps and you can prove yourself wrong. You can have the wrong hypothesis and you can still make a step forward. And I thought, oh, that's completely different than maths and the languages, the French and German that I did, the history. There you only get a right answer and that's what you've got to find. But in science, you can have the wrong answer but still make steps forward. So that's pretty much what started me thinking science is different and science is something I want to be involved in.
I love it. And I love it, the idea of it's also okay not to have the right answer, which is a big piece of also that we can take from life. Thank you for sharing that. Nicola, I'm going to turn it back to you. Can you share that story that comes to mind of what inspired you?
Yeah, you see, I'm a total fraud, right? And I'm actually a history graduate. So I really have no place on this panel. Don't cut me off. But in studying history, what we were always taught was to understand the causes of things. And that's what's always motivated me, was to understand what's behind that. What is the reason for that? I studied that as a history graduate, but to be honest, that's kind of everything. It's always understanding the reasons for things, what caused that to happen. And that could just as easily be, what's caused, this piece of social media to make, 80 people respond to it instead of 800 people, or, why has, this trended and that not trended. That's all about the causes of things. It's all about sort of neurology. So understanding the causes of things is really probably what motivates me more than anything.
Yeah, I love that also. It's a good example because sometimes people will come to me and say, well, I'm not that good at mathematics or I don't like it. And they'll say that at a very young age. And I'll say, well, hold on a second, because mathematics is a lot of things. And one of them is something that you just mentioned, and that is logical structure, or being able to understand how to analyze something. Like you said, the causes of something. That for me is very mathematical. It's a great example of STEM. Thank you very much. That's great. Peta, tell us what comes to mind.
So I think really similar to Nicola in that I sometimes feel like a bit of a fraud, because I did an arts degree. I did geography, and more the social science side of things, not physical geography. But for me, when I was an underwriter, I used data every day. And actually, I used to feel quite intimidated by the fact that I just didn't have enough information on which to base my decisions. And as you said at the beginning, I was a marine underwriter, and so I insured big ocean-going ships, so tankers, containers, cruise vessels. And one day I went to go and visit clients in Greece. So we had a lot of Greek ship owners who are our clients, and we went to visit them. And probably a lot of people on this call are far too young to remember, but in 2008 we had this financial crisis, and on the back of that there was also a shipping crisis, because lots of people had ordered ships when the economy was booming, and then they couldn't run those ships anymore along the same trading patterns. And one of these ship owners had changed their trading pattern, and they were having to trade a different route that they weren't used to. And on one of these journeys, they had an accident, and their vessel grounded on sediment, which had sort of moved direction. And they didn't know. They didn't know that that was going to happen to them. We didn't know that that was going to happen to them as their insurers. And 3 or 4 other vessels, ships, had also had that same incident in the preceding couple of months to the ship going through there. And I had this real light bulb moment that I thought, but there is all this data out there. We just need to find a way of accessing it. And at the time, the company that I was working for had hired a team of data scientists who, could pull information from all these different sources available on the internet to help us have more information about the risks that we were insuring. So that was the moment. I just thought, I need to actually move. I can't be an underwriter anymore. I need to go and do more on that side of things.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And especially, it's a great example of that inspiration may hit us at any point. Sometimes when we're going through university, or even younger than that, and we're waiting for like, oh, when am I going to know what I want to do? Well, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have a little bit of an inkling, but you've got to just keep trying things, and you might end up with that a little bit later than expected. And it can drive your career in a completely different direction sometimes. So thank you, Peta. That was a wonderful example. Merritt, it's so lovely to see you. Last time we were physically together was in Oxford. I can't believe it. It feels like it was yesterday. I don't want to know when it was. It's so great to see you. Of course, we follow you all the time. We're fans. We take a look at where you are. You're either, on a stage doing ballet, or you are in the lab. And fun to see where you are in different places. I'm so curious. Tell us about the story about what drove you to do what you're doing right now.
Hey, Melissa, it's such a pleasure to be here, and everyone here. I'm so excited. I would say as a kid, I loved puzzles. That was the thing I would get in trouble for. I would stay up at night to do puzzles. Mm-hmm. And so I just liked putting things together, and things would be a mess, and just sorting through that. And then later on, around first year of college, I took this kind of vague seminar where they talked about quantum mechanics. And they talked about these weird phenomena in which you have particles that would be in superposition, and they'd be entangled. And it was a particle and a wave. And it would be these mysteries that people were trying to understand. And then on top of that, they were building technology, quantum computers, and quantum cryptography and quantum telecommunication. So I was like, oh my God, I get to explore these mysteries of the universe and put it together in this, it went back to this puzzling together to create new technology. So when I'm in the lab, I put on my books on tape, and and I be late at night. I was and there was one day where I was just wow, this is really heralding back to when I was 8 or 7. And I would just be doing the same thing, but now it's a quantum optics table, not 3D puzzles. So that was my love for science.
It's great how that connects you, and the things that we've done as a kid, they come back later on, right? We may not notice them directly, but it's great you had that aha moment of wait a second, this feels very familiar. I feel like when you get in trouble as a kid for having the lights on too late at night, This is great. In fact, a question came up already from our great participants out there, and it's related to what I mentioned before, and also what you alluded to too. Dancing with a human robotic arm. I'm intrigued and want to see that. Is this the first time that you've joined the two passions on stage?
So I've been juggling physics and dance, professional ballet career, for 10 years now, totally separately, because physics world, I felt that they only want you to do physics, and if they found out about my dancing, they'd be like, oh, she's not dedicated enough. And then the dance world wanted me to choose just dance. And so in a way, I was kind of secretly doing both, jumping back and forth. And then when I graduated 2 years ago for my PhD, I just hit this point where I was like, you know, enough is enough. Like, I've been hiding both now for 10 years. Okay, this is a thing. I can do both. We're going to do both. And then the other thing is, you know, it takes a lot of time to do physics and dance. So I was like, okay, now we're going to try to squeeze them together so I can save some time and go to sleep. So then I was exploring. I was actually at Norwegian National Ballet, and a friend of a friend was talking about robots. And I was just like, could I borrow that robot? Like, could we play around? And then that led to Harvard has this art lab for artists to research. And that gave me space and time to explore working with this industrial robotic arm. So we had a showing there, and it's like multifold. So it's this industrial robotic arm, I'm dancing with it, but then we're also exploring artificial intelligence. Can that inspire new choreography? We're looking at making it interactive. We're looking at, you know, I've been working with the engineers at Harvard to see, can we get it moving around the floor? Can we have it bearing more weight? Been working with the Graduate School of Design in towards of making it interactive. So it's been a fun thing. And now during COVID, and that was right before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I was like, who knew that dancing with a robot would be my only option for a long time? So, robot is going to come to my apartment in July or August, and we are going to explore that more. So if people here are interested, I'm always looking for collaborators.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's a lot of things have changed recently, and going in that. And actually, it does also remind me of insurance and risk and so forth. Maybe this is for Nicola, but the recent world of events and how's that affected the insurance world? Is your office just completely busy of different things going on? Is there new things being discussed? Is there anything?
Well, the office is empty because we're all at home. We are all very busy. Yes, working on a lot of things. So obviously there are claims. You have people who maybe were trying to go on holiday and had to cancel their holiday or get flown back in an emergency. That's kept people very busy. And yeah, we're trying to understand what the future risks might be. If everybody stays working at home, what different risk does that mean a company might have if we're sitting on our own chairs? Am I more likely to hurt my back? Maybe that might be a risk that a company might have to pay out. But if they've got a big office that's completely empty, is that more at risk because it's empty, or is it less at risk because it's empty? So these are the things that we're having to look at the moment.
Great. And yeah, it creates new things to look at. Also, new innovations are going to come about. So then those are things to take a look at the risk. And actually, one of our participants has that question. Maybe this is for you, Emma. How does someone get into this field of risk? How do you get from where you were to this? And how could someone do this if they were looking for a career choice?
Within the energy sector, so we cover a lot of energy risks, mining, power, what other engineers are there, oil rig. They like you to have a little bit of industrial background so that when you go out to the client sites, you've got an idea of how the industry works and how the different pieces of the puzzle work together. But we also have another side of risk engineering that's the commercial property side. And that looks at things like warehouses and hotels and more the commercial aspects. And for that, I believe you can come in more or less at a graduate level and be trained up within that position. So it just depends what kind of aspect that you want to look at. I mean, I've even known some underwriters to go into engineering and vice versa. So pretty open. That's
great. Also, Nicola, what do you have?
I was only going to say, just to add to that, thanks, Emma, that most people enter the insurance industry by accident. That's how most people get into it. It's rarely a conscious choice, which is a shame. So I would say if there is anyone who's watching who thinks, well, that might be interesting, and they want to go into it proactively, they'll probably stand quite a good chance, because a lot of people seem to fall into it. So if if you're really keen and you want to go into it, then seek it out. I think it would be
absolutely
a good approach.
Yeah, and then also you now have many people on the line that you can seek out on LinkedIn, and their immediate contacts, so you can see about getting jobs. You never know. Peta, can you tell us about where you studied? I know one of our participants had a question about that.
Where I studied, did you say? Yeah, so I am, as I mentioned, I did a geography degree, and I went to the University of Exeter, which is in Devon, in the United Kingdom. It rains a lot there, so if you don't like the rain, maybe not one for you. And I then, after graduating, started straight into marine hull. Was my first job out of university. And it was very much sort of learn on the job. And in insurance, you also have insurance specific qualifications that you are sort of encouraged to do by your employer, because it gives you credibility, and also gives you broader understanding, because as we've sort of mentioned on this, if you're an underwriter, you can be very specialized. So Emma mentioned sort of the energy sector. I used to be in marine. Emma also mentioned property. So you get into a very specific risk sector, which you then understand, you become an expert in, but you also then need that sort of broader understanding of the insurance industry and how it operates. So you can do some specific qualifications as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we have time for one more question before we go to the rooms. And actually, I'm going to go back to Merritt, because there's been a few questions and they kind of range a few things. One is, how do you balance between the two? Do you get questioned about trying to be both a ballerina and a physicist? And how would you recommend to someone who has these different, what seems to be very different interests, when you're going through university and trying to find time for both, so that you don't have to choose one or the other? So
yeah, I mean, there's such good questions, and it's tough. Like, I think the hardest thing looking back was I think were the doubts, right? Is we can all put in hard work, but it's putting in hard work when you have all these doubts of, oh, is this going to pay off in the end? So I would say there are a couple things. One is being persistent is number one. There were a lot of things, like now I get press, and like in BBC it was like, breaking news, they found this physicist ballerina, and my friends were like, this is not breaking news, like like this girl's been doing this hardcore for 15 years, years, hours, days, years, where just working hard, and being the worst one in the class, and then being the middle of the class, and then going to the next level, and again being the worst one in the class. So I would say, persistence. And then in terms of time management, I know it's so tricky, but one thing in particular I say is, like, I believe in conservation of energy. Is that, there's only so much energy that we have in time in the day. So I absolutely spend no energy or time on negative thoughts. I don't think about, I'm not like, oh, but, what if they think this about me? I'm just like, you know what, there's only so much time, we're going to try it. And if it fails, we're going to learn something and then do it again. So I think, definitely continuing that. And then, and knowing within yourself what your passions are. I had great advice when I was younger that, like, be careful, perfect is replaceable. Right. This was a dance teacher just being like, look, if you're going to try to be like everyone else, you're going to be replaceable. So she was like, look, tap into what's unique to you. What are your passions? What are your things that are unique to you? Whether it's like collecting stamps and like biotechnology or, whatever it is, in the end, if you're pursuing your passions that's unique, that even if it seems weird and people aren't into it, that's actually better. And if you really dive into that, there will be intersections later on. And it's just, holding on to that and just going on for the ride with all the ups and downs that are inevitable in learning.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It actually reminds me, I had a CEO of a very large company say that to me once, where he loved meeting candidates for jobs that had very different interests, and made them stand out and made them different. So even if it was something that you think is kind of small, you don't have to be the best at something, but that you just really enjoyed this activity, and you were trying to be in the whatever role of this company. So it was great to kind of connect the two. And also what you mentioned too is something that Emma had talked about before too, in that idea of creating a theory or a theorem, trying it out, testing it through. Okay, so it didn't work. Okay, fine. We learn from it. We go on to the next theorem. You know, we take a look at it. All right, this is a great time that we can go to the rooms. So what we're going to do is we're all going to travel. But this time we don't need to get insurance for this one. We don't need to pack. We're just going to take a breath and jump into a room, and everyone who's on the screen now, is going to be in a different room. So everyone who's participating, you'll get a chance to have that room with that individual. It's random. You'll get a chance to do this twice. Use this as a great opportunity to ask questions, because you never know where you may get inspiration from. It could give you great ideas for the future. And this is, again, someone else that you're getting a chance to meet. And it's important to build this around us, because someone who may inspire you could happen from when you were 10 years old to when you were, I'm not even going to say my age. So whatever it might be, right? So there's a lot of things in between. So get ready to travel. I know the team is ready to roll. So right now you're going to see on your screen a room to go into. You can go ahead and click and then take a breath and jump.
Alrighty, so I will share my screen. So I think maybe starting with, because we were talking about robot dance. So this is, because some people are like, I don't get what an industrial robotic arm is, and I totally get that. So this is an industrial robotic arm. This is a universal robotics. It's got 6 joints, and this is done in Norway at the moment. This is at Norway, where at first I was playing around with it based on the floor. And what I was finding was we were exploring, you know, this idea that communication, there's this theory that communication is 93% nonverbal and mostly body language. So the idea was, does that body language though have to be a human body, or could it also be something like an industrial robotic arm? Can we play with emotion with this industrial robotic arm? So can we make it like shy? Can we make it aggressive? Can we make it loving? Exploring that. Ooh. Okay, so then going to this one was done when I was at the Harvard Art Lab. We now have it higher up, the base higher up, and so I'm now exploring with it and playing around with more choreography, seeing if it can partner me. I'm wearing my point shoes, I'm playing around with, do ballet moves work? Does it inspire new type of movement? What happens when we change the music? How can we explore this? So that was the project that I've been working on continuing this and expanding it. And then here's a photo of like my 3 worlds that I was exploring. So middle picture is me dancing. Dancing obviously took tons of training, a lot of training on my own, because when I was at Oxford, there weren't dance classes. So I had to train alone in my dorm room. I had to train at the gym. I would do Pilates and yoga. So actually during this time of COVID, I'm kind of like, well, I've been training in my dorm room for years. So this has put me in a room and we got it. So there's training. Here's at Oxford when I'm working on my quantum optics experiments. So as you can see, you can't fit it all, but what it would look like is this huge table filled with like mirrors and lenses, and I'd be putting it all together and having this laser go into this tiny little crystal to create pairs of photons, particles of light that would be entangled, and it'd be in superposition, and then I would interfere them and create these measurements and trying to do these quantum metrology measurements. It was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work as well, and a lot of failures along the way, but finish that. And then over here is when I did the BBC Astronauts Do You Have What It Takes? And this is when 12 candidates were selected out of a couple thousand applicants, and we went through astronaut selection process. So that day is the day that they threw me into a helicopter and told me to figure out how to hover it. And I was like, I've never been in a helicopter, let alone like maneuvered a huge vehicle. Are you guys crazy? And they're like, yeah, we'll film it, no problem. So they had us do the helicopter. We maneuvered the Mars rover that astronaut Tim Peake had used. They flew us to Germany, and we did the simulators that the actual astronauts used for years to dock the Soyuz to the International Space Station. They threw us in a capsule and dunked us underwater and flipped us upside down, and we had to come out, because when you're an astronaut coming back from space, you land in the Atlantic Ocean, so you need to figure out how to get out of a capsule and delegate your coordinates to the people that are going to save you. So that was an extraordinary experience. And so combining the dance and the physics, and now working with the robots and machine learning and artificial intelligence, I'm also super keen on, getting my piloting license, applying. I've applied for, this year, a couple months ago, I applied for NASA, waiting to hear back. Will apply again if I don't make it. Just really interested. I just want to go dance on the moon. That's my next thing. If there are questions, I'm here to, questions, concerns? I can keep chatting, yeah.
I think someone wrote on the chat,
Mm-hmm.
Izzy asked, when did you start ballet and how long have you done it?
So I started dancing when I was 13, which is very late in the dance world. They told me I would never make it as a professional dancer. And I was the worst one in the room for a long, long time. And so I got this question in the previous chat, which was like, how do I have doubts and how do I overcome those? And so having started dance so late, I definitely had doubts, and I definitely felt like I was the worst one. And I started physics quite late too. And, I was in the class filled with these physics Olympiads, and they would be like getting it right away. And they would say, and I had teachers were like, Merritt, you seem kind of slow on this. Like, you sure? Like, there's this whole mentality nowadays that if you don't get it right away, you're not good at it. And so find something else. And I would counter that just saying, look, everyone learns differently. And for me personally, I need time. And so I would take the time, I would read that physics book, 10 times over. I'd read each chapter, and I'd go to the lecture hall when it was empty and pretend like I was teaching, because someone said that if you can teach it, then you know it. So then I would do that. And then I would and I tried to teach it differently, because a lot of these textbooks for girls, and like all the textbooks I have are written by men. And I think sometimes, and a specific type of man, I think it's catered for not just men, but like a specific type of man that thinks a certain way. So rethinking the textbook in a way that makes sense to you, or makes sense to your, like a different type of mindset, was important for me in continuing and pushing forward. And so that's advice. And that, knowing that there will always be doubts, it's just part of our nature. It's like, because we're kind of smart, so we understand all of the situational things that could go wrong. But I think just knowing, being like, okay, the doubts will be here, but we're just going to push forward, right? Like, it's fine. Like, it's like if I talk to the doubts, being like, hey, you want to come in for the ride? You are happy to join the party. I know you're going to stay here, but we're going to push forward, and you're not going to stop me. Like, making sure that the doubts aren't your barrier to, because I think we'll be like, oh, but if I work, if I put in all this time and it doesn't work out. And I would say putting in the hard work pays off in the end. It always pays off. And so there's so many times where I've like gone for an audition, or practiced really hard for an exam, and either failed, got rejected, did really poorly. And for some people, that's when they're like, oh, that's proof that I put in hard work and it didn't work out. But the thing is, if you stay with it, so, there are times where I put in tons of hard work, failed, got rejected, but then the next week, there's another audition, or there's another exam, or the next year, and all that work that I just did, like, helps me succeed in that one. So always, whenever there's an opportunity for me to work, or to put do something weird, or learn and improve, knowing that I might fail at that one, I'm like, it's okay, because it's going to make me stronger for the next one. Any questions? Sorry, these breakout rooms, we have 42 seconds.
It's so short. There is a couple of questions in the chat. Let's try to answer them. We have, I think, 1 minute left. What did you do when you felt that others were better than you? How did you make yourself feel better? And since you didn't go to a college for dance, was it harder to get hired by a company?
Okay, so we have 18 seconds. If I don't finish this, physics on point, I'm on Instagram, you can message me and I'll video it. Okay, so when I put on horse blinders, I just say, you know what, I'm happiest when I improve myself, and you just can't compare yourself to other people.
Okay, it's great to see everyone back. I hope you had a great discussion. I'm sure you did, because I saw all the questions coming up while we were all chatting, so I'm sure you were bombarded, which is wonderful. I would like to, before we dive into our room again, I know there's more questions, and I'd like to hear how your rooms went, but first, I want to bring someone out who I know has prepared a few questions for you. You may or may not know everyone, but G4G has an ambassador program. It's for people who are, especially students, who really just are so passionate already about STEM that they want to encourage everybody around them. And they get a chance to be part of G4G in so many different ways. It's led by our wonderful G4G team, and with Thaisa also coming from Brazil. In particular, we have our ambassador from the UK with us, Julia. And so Julia, I'm going to invite to put on your video so you can ask a question. And Julia, first of all, thank you very much for your fabulous podcast that you're doing for G4G. We can't wait to see it every time. And just to note that Julia is in Cambridge, and she is studying biomedical engineering and very passionate about inspiring girls into STEM, as are all of us as well. So Julia, what questions do you have for our speakers today?
Thank you, Melissa. I'd like to ask the speakers, on the theme of innovation, what scientific development do they hope to see happen in their lifetime?
I wish that I could insert my phone somehow into my body so I stop losing it. That is what I wish for. I spend about 2 hours a day walking around my house, swearing, saying, "Where is my phone?" So the sooner I can start inserting things into my body, the better, frankly. I don't mean recreationally, I mean for technology purposes. I would like my phone and my car keys and my house keys, preferably, all embedded into me somehow. I wait for that day.
All right, that sounds like an entrepreneurial idea somewhere out there for anyone.
Please invent that.
Yes. Great. Emma, you had your microphone unmuted.
Yeah, mine's a bit more. I really hope I'm around for clean energy. This is a big problem, and look at Nicola's face. No, but yours was more practical. You know, that's probably coming. Julie's working on it. But no, clean energy for sure. It needs to happen. I hope it should. I think if we get the right people on it, then we really will crack it, and we need to crack it as a planet. So that's fine.
Great, thanks. All right, Peta or Merritt, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm super excited about more space exploration and where that's going to take us, and yeah, the future of that.
Yeah, and there's so many great things in the news that keep coming up about that. Newer things every day. Yeah,
it's very exciting.
Great. All right, good. Peta.
Mine's really boring, but I'm going to say it anyway because I really
Go for it.
This happens. But you know, the London insurance market, and in particular Lloyd's, which is sort of a part of that, is very traditional. And I've been working in the industry for 10 years, and there's been a lot of progress in those 10 years. But I hope in another 10 years time that we really are like truly digital, and we are offering like much more sort of bespoke solutions to our clients. And I touched on this in the group I was in a little bit, but insurance at the moment sort of runs on this annualized basis, which Nicola mentioned. And you know, we're really looking at having more like parametric triggers for losses. So it'll be like if something happens, then you get a payout immediately, as well as kind of letting people flex their coverage for when they're more at risk and less at risk. But I think we're still quite a long way from that.
Great. Lots of different answers from lots of different perspectives. Julia, we have time for one more question, and then we need to travel again, different places.
Okay, well, this next question is to Nicola. So, from your experience in communications and marketing, what are your top tips for girls wanting to communicate their ideas confidently and clearly?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, be confident and be clear. And I think we all need to do what Merritt does and just take away the negativity and own it. But I see women with more confidence nowadays than I used to see when I started a long time ago. So I think that's coming. But yeah, there's no need for self-doubt. Just own it and tell your story.
Love it.
Really good advice.
All right, thank you, Julia, for your questions. All right, we are ready to travel again because there's more participants who want to get a chance to meet each of you. So you're going to have different people in your room. So you can take a look, share what you want to share to all of our speakers here, and also to everyone else, get your questions ready. You should see on your screen a place to go, take a breath, and jump and travel to different parts of the world, perhaps.
Hello. Lots of people here. Okay, so let me share my screen, but apologies for any technical issues. I want to share screen one. Yes, I do. And we're going to go backwards. Oh dear, I'm on the wrong slide. There we go. Okay, so I usually work in one of these two buildings. This one with all the inside out stuff, I actually now only go to for meetings. But when I was an underwriter, this is where I went every day to do business. And in London, the heart of insurance is in this building, and it operates a bit like a department store. So if you go into a big department store to go and look at clothing or anything, perfume, whatever it is, there'll be lots of different concessions in that store, and they'll all be different brands. So that's how Lloyd's operates as well. It operates as a marketplace. It's the only face-to-face marketplace left in the world. And when I was an underwriter, I would go in there and I would sit there and I would wait for risks to be shown to me. But I wouldn't see the end client, so I wouldn't see a ship owner in there generally. They have a broker who operates on their behalf. So a broker would come in and they would bring, and usually they would come in, and I mean, I'm not even joking when I say like stacks and stacks of paper. I'm just checking that there's nothing, no messages or anything coming in. Okay, good. I'm just moving this here. Okay, so they would then bring in these risks, and they would then sit down with me on the side and say, okay, do you want to insure this ship or this fleet of ships? So it's really unique in that way. That market has been going for sort of 300 years, so it's also just got so much history. It's very traditional, and when I very first started working in insurance, and it was my first day. I was probably there for a week actually when I used to do this, and then I was told I wasn't allowed to anymore. But there's two main escalators in this building, and they go, and they take people up and down. And I was just amazed by the buzz and how many people were in there every day bringing in these risks. And just if you like stop to think about it, it's kind of mind-blowing how many different risks are insured in there on a daily basis. And so that's where I used to work. But now, how do I go next? Scroll. Yeah. Now I'm working here because I'm not allowed to go to the office. And at the moment we're saying that probably won't be back until September at the earliest. So it's a very different environment, but equally I'm also not doing that risk side of things anymore. So I'm not having to kind of make decisions on risks from a remote location. But I think, it must be quite a challenging thing to do this like this now when you've been used to seeing somebody face to face in order to negotiate and understand the risk that they're bringing in. And just quickly, so I just need to move the screen again. So I don't know where oh, there we go, it's working good. So it's one of those funny things that we sort of joke about in insurance, that if you sort of go to a dinner party, you see, you meet somebody for the first time and they say, oh, what do you do? And you say, oh, I work in insurance. They might end up like this little dog here, like just like, oh, I'm so bored of you right now. But that is just simply not the case. Like, I think that insurance is an incredibly fun industry to work in. Firstly, like, you are dealing with people every day, so you'll get the chance to meet clients, and they could be internal clients, they could be external clients. It's very social, it's very interactive, and actually in the previous group I was talking about some risks that I used to insure, and I really liked the opportunity to work with the people who were scientific in the business. So we had actuaries who would, help us to analyze our risks. So I've got a question in here. Did I come across a challenging / special risk assessment? And you heard how no insurer wanted to insure their Apollo 11. Yeah. How to calculate the risks. That is such a good question. So yeah, we do have that problem in insurance. Sometimes, because it is such a sort of traditional industry, and a lot of the time, one of the key pillars of insurance is that you spread the risk. So the idea is that, for mobile phone insurance, which is a good example that Nicola used earlier, or car insurance, you've got so much volume of that risk, right? So there's loads of people who need that type of insurance. And then you spread that risk out across that big group. And then, I know you guys all understand maths and science better than I do, so sorry if I'm simplifying this, but that risk spread then enables you to only pay losses on the few. So you insure the many, and then you pay out claims on the few. So when you have things that are really unusual, like the Apollo 11, where you don't have that pool of risk, it's really hard. Firstly, there's historical losses are also what we use to kind of base a lot of our forward-looking decisions. So, and this is again why the insurance industry is trying to adapt at the moment, is in the past we might have said, well, look, we have no loss history for that, so we can't come up with a price because we don't know what the potential losses can be. And so something like shipping insurance, which has been going for 300 years, you have got masses and masses of data to kind of make quite accurate predictions about what will happen in the future. But it's not as easy to do that on the stuff that's unusual. So one of the things that I actually had to insure once, which I actually think is really funny because I'm not even really sure how it made it into a shipping account, but the traditional things that I insured, as I said, were container ships, vessels that move, right? And are traveling or transporting people or goods. And we got shown this fountain, a floating fountain called, I think, Mopco Fountain. I can't even remember where it was located anymore, but somewhere in the Far East. And we got shown this by one of our brokers, and he said, oh, can you insure this? I was like, how am I meant to price this? We don't have anything similar to this in our portfolio. I don't know what kind of physical damage can happen to this. We're, with an engine, I'm like, okay, I know what kind of losses can occur. With that, I just had no idea. But we did offer a price on it because we felt like actually we could kind of ask enough questions. And this is another thing as an underwriter, you are really encouraged to ask lots of questions. And now actually just recently, so there's this legal sort of act where the onus is now on underwriters to ask the broker lots of questions to get more information on the risk. The broker doesn't have to tell you absolutely everything about that risk, and you've got to ask really targeted questions to understand it. And does anybody else have any questions? I'll stop sharing this, just if you want to come off mute or anything like that.
I have a quick question. I know that you are starting a little passion project of a pumpkin patch, right?
Yes, I am.
I'm just wondering, we only have 1 minute left, but what if this grows into a huge sustainable farm one day? How will your knowledge of insurance help you make sure that dream, is really successful and carries forward?
I think that's a great question. I do also wonder that when you work in insurance, it makes you way more risk averse. So doing anything, where you look at everything that could go wrong, which I think is really good because actually it makes you prepare for the worst case scenario, and it helps you to avoid bad things happening. So we often joke that funnily enough, whilst we all accept risk in insurance, particularly as an underwriter, you sort of are this is my daily job. You question things so much, and you want to be well, where are the sprinklers, or where are the what, for that kind of thing. And we've obviously had really extreme weather in the UK recently, so that's been something we're how can we protect these pumpkins from the weather? So it just makes you think about things in a sort of different way.
Hi everyone. And I think that the idea was that I was going to introduce myself again, just to sort of let you know who I am, and then we can just kind of talk. And you can ask me any questions you want. So just to remind you, I'm Nicola Ratchford, and my role, I'm at AIG, which is a big insurance company, and I'm head of marketing and communications. And just to remind you, I started my career as a journalist, so I've always been a sort of nosy, unpleasant person, and I ask lots of questions. And so I started as a journalist, and then I moved to work for companies and help them tell their stories to journalists. And I've sort of moved upwards and onwards, and now within AIG I look after all of their marketing and communications. So that can be anything from, if a journalist asks a question, if there's something in the media, it's our social media strategy, it's our brand, it's the look and feel of how we present ourselves, it's our customer relationship data, and it's all of our events, it's our digital media, and it's sort of everything in between. So there's a range of things that we do within marketing communications. It's very creative, but also we have to use, as I was saying, we have to use a lot of data to understand, you know, why things are happening, what's driving behavior. So that's my job in a nutshell. We were asked to sort of share things about ourselves, so I don't know, can I do this? Share screen, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to show you, I did mention that I had 2 dogs. That's one of my dogs. There we go. Thought that was important. That's like an important thing to share. I'm not sure, you don't need to see my kids, but my dogs are important, right? And I did also mention my vegetable patch. There we go. I ate that.
What's his name?
Oh, my dog's name is Red. He's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. He's enormous. He's 52 kilos. He's bigger than most of you. And this is my vegetable patch, and I ate that lettuce for my lunch today, so there we go. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen because that's kind of boring, but there we go. So that's the most important thing about me. That's my job, my dog, and my lettuce. Does anyone have any questions? There were lots of questions coming in on the chat. Were any of them from any of you ladies?
I think Gwen had a great question about time management. It was a bit more directed to Merritt and how she was dealing with 3 careers.
Oh yeah,
time.
I want to be Merritt. Everyone wants to be Merritt, right? She's amazing. And I would say I saw on the chat, I saw a few questions saying, well, how can I juggle like the arts and the sciences? How can I fit everything in? And I think it's a good question. I do think Merritt is like superwoman. But I would say also that it's, as Melissa was saying, it's really good to keep up a hobby that makes you different. And as a, like, I mean, as a story, I play the piano, and I learned when I was little. I played when I was 5, and yeah, so I always played the piano, and I ended up, I don't know if anyone here is British, but I ended up doing grades. You do grades and you go up to grade 8. That's like the highest grade. So I did a grade 8 piano. And so I still play, but only for myself. No one will want to hear me play. But it's something that I've always had on my CV. So when I apply for a job, I have like hobby, it says interests, and I will say piano. And the first job I applied for, I got because of that. And only because of that. But the guy who was interviewing me from New York, like big Uber, big cheese, big fromage, said, what's grade 8 piano? And I was like, oh, it's a classical music grading. He's like, it's the highest? Oh, that's great. I play guitar. And he really wasn't a very nice man. And I definitely wouldn't have got the job, I'm pretty certain, were it not for the fact that he discovered that I played music. And he was like, I think people who play music are the best. My son doesn't practice. And then we went into a little rant about how his son doesn't practice. But I do think that's like having something interesting like that on your CV, I think is really helpful. So even if you don't become like a national ballerina like Merritt, I think just, having an interest is always quite helpful.
Yeah, pursue your hobbies and be a bit different. Don't hesitate to be a bit different.
Exactly.
All right, so we have 3 minutes left, girls. Do you have any questions for Nicola, for the insurance sector, for studies, anything?
Yeah, either about insurance or sort of marketing, if anyone's interested in digital media.
Yeah, I have a question actually. I also work in the marketing department. I actually work for Rebel Girls, the book that they were mentioning before. And I wanted to ask you, like, what do you like the most of telling the stories, or like what questions do you ask yourself when trying to share like the best thing that will connect with people when sharing stories?
Yeah, that's a great. I love Rebel Girls, by the way. We've got that book. I gave my
Thank you.
And yeah, I think so. Storytelling is hugely powerful, and again, this is where the kind of the creative mixes with the science, because it's all about neurology. We are monkeys, more or less, and it's our old-fashioned, like, it's the monkey brain. I don't know where. I'm not a brain scientist. I've got no idea what the limbic cortex is, but wherever the limbic cortex is, let's say it's here,
like in the middle of your head.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Gwen.
You have to get through that to get to the cerebral cortex. Where's the cerebral cortex? Hands up. Who knows where the cerebral cortex is?
I think it's in the front, but I have no clue.
Okay, fine. So the cerebral cortex is the clever bit that does the rationalizing. So if I want to sell you this pen, like, I want to get to your cerebral cortex to say, like, buy this pen. And if I was talking to your cerebral cortex, I'd be going, oh, it's only 50p, and that's really good value because it's like this big and it'll last you for like 5 weeks, and so that's really good. But I need to get past your limbic brain, because your limbic brain's going, she's trying to sell me a pen. I don't even want to, what's she talking about? So to get past your limbic brain, which we now know is here, you tell a story. And that's how you get people to trust you, because we're animals and we like the story is what sort of touches people. It's the emotion. So you get in through the monkey brain here by saying, this pen is the first pen I ever used to write my first story with. And then you're like, wow. And it's 50p and it's great value and it'll last you for 5 weeks. And then because then I've got through to your cerebral, it's here, wherever it is. So I think storytelling, sorry, I'm sort of on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, storytelling is super important. And it doesn't matter the story, but it has to have, an arc, it has to have a beginning, middle, and it has to have a point. It has to have a point. And then if you're trying to sell something, it has to have a call to action at the end of it.
Yay, we're all back from our rooms. So much travel today. Everyone's got a chance to see, in essence, everybody's office, so to speak, or at least a day in the life. And I'm sure you've got tons of questions. We have time for one great question that you got asked that you would love to share so that everyone else can hear. Anything that came up?
I had a great questions that was, what do you do when you're in the room and you feel like there are people better than you, and how do you deal with the doubts? And I would definitely say, for the doubts, look, like, I embrace the doubts as in, like, look, they will always be there. I will always doubt, and I just kind of say, like, hey, doubts, come for the ride, because I'm gonna just push forward, and and making sure that the doubts don't stop you, and just accepting the doubts, just knowing we will always doubt ourselves, but the work does pay off. Like, if all that work that we put in does pay off. And so what I was telling the group before was, look, I've worked super hard for an exam, and I've worked super hard for an audition, and I have fallen flat on my face. I've done poorly on exam. I've been rejected. I've not made the audition, but a year later or a week later, I'll have another exam or another audition, and everything that I learned there makes me that much better for the next one. And so just kind of accepting that, and just knowing that, putting in the hard work, saying, like, hey, doubts, come along. And then also putting in the horse blinders of what makes you happiest. Like, I think for me, what makes me happy is just improving. It's like really just improving and saying, look, there will always be people better than you, but you will only be uniquely you. And so the best thing is to be the best you on all fronts, whether it's like as a sibling, as a person, as a scientist. So just continually improving, and with of course blinders on.
Yeah, I love that. And it's actually, I know it's something that binds us all together. So what I love about, especially, pulling different people together to inspire people in many different ways, we can even look at it from subject, physics, communication, mathematics, engineering, whatever it is that brings us all together may look like it's different. But one thing I think we can all say is we've been there with doubts, and it continues to be around us. There's one thing that I always say, and that is block the noise. So, continue your focus. Doesn't mean you don't hear it, you don't use it, you certainly improve from it, but you block it so that, or else you would be listening to that instead of like doing what you should do, what you could do, what you're meant to do. So great advice. Thank you for that, Merritt. Is there anything else that you guys would like to jump into, especially that topic? And then we're going to dive into something else.
Yeah, I think that's really like great advice to just kind of focus on your own kind of path, and not get distracted and sometimes some days it's easier than others. Some days you're like, oh, I've just had a bit of a bad day today, but you brush it off. The next day is like a new opportunity. And particularly I am not very mathematical, and it's a real challenge, it's a real weakness for me. But equally, I now know that I work in an organization where I'm surrounded by people who are really good at that. And so now I know that I can go and ask those people for help. And I think that like power of your network and power of like leveraging people's strengths, you really got to like tap into that as much as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you also know more than you think. So we automatically assume we don't know something sometimes, and it's actually usually not the case. This is great. Thank you. And thank you for diving into all the questions you must have had during your rooms as well, because this is where people get a chance to really get to know you. I'd like to say, like, what is the probability we're going to see an experiment next? And I would probably answer it to say it's 100%, because this is the next part of our program that we'd love. And that is to dive in and see what's going on in the atelier at G4G, which is the name of it means workshop in French. And it's what's going on. And I think they've been cooking up something related to the topic at hand. So I'd love to see what the team has for us.
Hello and welcome to our Atelier office with your G4G team, Indra and Alex. On today's broadcast, we heard from amazing speakers on how innovative thinking can lead to new and very cool solutions. So the more information we have on the world around us, the better we can actually make those decisions and create innovative thinking. And to help us get there, math and statistics can reveal a lot about the world around us and will help make us the best choice possible. And so on today's experiment, we're going to learn all about probability.
Indeed, we're going to look at probabilities today. So what is the probability that your school bus will be late tomorrow? What's the probability that a pop star will cross your path? What is the probability of an earthquake occurring, of a rugby player injuring themselves during a game? Those are all important questions. So basically, life is a game of chance. It is a sequence or a chain of events that could either come true or not come true. But what we do know for sure is that math is a fantastic tool to help us make decisions. So let's say to increase our successes and to decrease our failures. So that probability basically tells us the likelihood that an event is going to come true. It is the chance of something happening or not happening. Are you ready to play a probability game? Yes! Very good. Because we are actually going to explore today the math behind the well-known game rock, paper, and scissors. We are going to see if calculating the probabilities of the game can actually help us beat the odds and win the game. Wouldn't we love to know what move our opponent or friend Alex is going to throw next? What are the chances that they're going to throw paper? What are the chances that they're not going to throw rock? So we are going to play the probability game today, calculate the probabilities, and see if this can help us answer some of those very important questions. All right, Alex. We have 3 strategies in this game: rock, paper, and scissors. So what conclusions do we draw from this? Each time we play a certain strategy, we can either win or lose, or indeed draw. But also, each strategy, rock, paper, and scissors, has an equal chance of winning, an equal probability of winning. That is 1 3.
But if they all have an equal probability, it doesn't look like there's a strategy to win. Or is there?
Alex, I'm going to play rock, paper, and scissors together with you 20 times right now. We are friends, but today I will consider you my opponent because we want to know how to increase our winning chances against our opponents. So what we are going to do is we are going to count, in order to reach our probability calculation, how many times Alex will throw stone, how many times paper, and how many times scissors. And then we are going to calculate the chance, the probability of her throwing each strategy within the 20 rounds of game that we will play now. Ready?
Yes!
Alright, we are ready to take a look at the results of our game. We're going to see the probability, the chances that Alex threw a certain strategy or move within the game. The way we're going to do this is by first, we counted how many times did she throw each move. So, rock 8 times, paper was thrown 5 times, and scissors 7 times. Now we are going to calculate our probabilities. A very simple but very effective equation. How does it go? Well, we take the number of times that we've thrown a move, divided by the total number of games. So for rock, 8 over 20, which gives us 0.4. How much percentage is that, Alex?
You multiply by 100 and you get 40%.
Indeed. So now we're starting to see some clear results. Alex threw the most rock and the least paper, and scissors was kind of in the middle. So, with 40% rock, that tells me quite a lot about Alex's strategy during the game. Alright, Alex, we have some pretty cool results, but what we have to remember is that those results only apply to the 20 rounds of games that we played, and those are not enough in order for us to make predictable, reliable decisions. Okay, so in theory, all gestures still have an equal chance of occurring and winning. 1 in 3, it's random. So, but why did then some of the gestures occur more frequently than others, like for example rock? It is actually because of the behavior and the choices of your opponent. And this is where Chinese researchers did a really cool study. They recruited 360 students to play the game 300 times for a whopping 2 hours. What they found? Indeed, players choose their moves completely randomly to confuse their opponent. The chances remain 1 in 3 for each move, but they did discover a hidden pattern, which was that winners showed a very high chance of actually repeating the same move in the next round, and losers did the opposite. They had a very high chance of actually switching their move for the next round. So that is a hidden statistical probability pattern that tells us a lot about how we could win the game.
That's so interesting because it actually goes to show that when you have many examples, you can detect big patterns and then you can make better choices based on those patterns.
Exactly.
Super cool. Next up, we have a very cool experiment to show you how patterns, how probability can help predict patterns, and you can see order out of chaos. Excited.
We are ready to test our probability machine. All we need to do is take a ball, drop it in the top, see it bounce off the nails before it finally drops into one of the slots or categories at the bottom. Our board is a visual investigation on the probability of where our balls will fall. Every time a ball hits a nail, there is, in theory, a 50-50 chance of it to fall either on the left or the right side of the nail. So each path is pretty much unpredictable. Even if we take two balls and drop them in at the same time, they will still end up in completely different positions. We can't possibly accurately predict where a ball will end up. But we can make a few statements. A ball is more likely to end up in the middle because in the triangle center there are lots more paths it can take. There are only a few paths on the right and the left side of the triangle for the ball to end up on the outer slots. So what we can do now is to test actually with loads of balls. Even if we can't predict where the individual balls will end up, we can predict an overall pattern from lots of them. So let's see what results we can get. Okay, we can now see a clear visual pattern. It is famously called the normal distribution, with few balls on the sides and many in the middle. Many things in life and nature follow exactly this pattern. People's heights, shoe sizes, IQs, income, student grades, even the weather. A lot of things in science, math, and engineering match this pattern, a bell-shaped curve. Our experiment shows us we can't make good conclusions about one or few balls, but we can say a lot about the behavior of many.
So, our experiments show us that actually math, statistics, probabilities, essentially data and information let us see the world in a whole new way. They let us see the big pictures, the big patterns that help us make decisions that benefit us all as a community.
So with all of that innovative thinking said, we can't wait to see you on the next episode of Science You Had Me At Hello!
Hi, everyone. This was such a wonderful experiment to bring all of the different speakers all together. I'm going to ask them all to put on their video so we can see them one last time because we're getting close to the end of our broadcast. First, a big thank you to our G4G team for the amazing creativity that always comes into play with figuring out what is the experiment to show. I can't think of a better one that brings everything all together that we've just been talking about for the past hour. So what I'd love to do to end on the final note, because I know that we would love to be talking to you all day long, but we can't. So we're going to end on one final thing, and that is, what I'd like to find out from you is your wish for the world. And particularly when I think about science or STEM overall, as you know with G4G, we love to encourage science studies for everyone, but we have a particular focus to change the outlook for girls in STEM in particular. And so what is your wish for the world, whether it's related to this or overall? What last advice would you give to all the people that are online today? So I'm going to just go quickly around and ask for you to say a few words. I'm going to start with Emma because you're right on the top next to me, at least in my view.
Hi. I think my wish for STEM is for diversity, for more people to be involved, a lot more people. We have a lot of problems, and they're only going to be solved with STEM and STEM subjects. At the moment, COVID-19, they're looking to STEM to get us out of that. Sustainability, clean energy, these are all huge topics that STEM is going to help us get out of. And so I just think we need more diversity, more people, more opinions, and we'll find the solutions to these problems. I was in a meeting once with a client, and we made a risk recommendation, and they said, the guy was like, oh no, I can't because of this, and this. And the risk manager just shut him down and said, even difficult problems we can solve. Yeah. And that was it. It's true. And STEM will really help that. So that's what I hope, we get more diversity.
And it's a great message for now because it is a difficult moment, and we need science and we need diversity. I love that as a great message. Thank you for that. Peta, what do you have for us?
One of the things that's sort of come out, obviously there's huge problems at the moment with COVID-19, but I think, those people who are sort of in poverty are sort of suffering the most. And so for me, using science and STEM to find sustainable food sources and that kind of thing is really important.
Great, thank you. Nicola, what do you have?
I think I wish for everyone to tackle their inner doubt in the way that Merritt has managed to. I think that if everybody can turn off that voice that says, oh, I don't think you can do that, that would be really helpful. So I think that's what I wish for the world, is for all those inner critics to shut up. And if we can all learn from Merritt how to do that, then that's wonderful.
Fantastic, thank you. And Merritt?
I would wish that that there's a reminder when learning sciences that it's actually, you need so much creativity and imagination, and that it's not just this rote thing where we memorize and then regurgitate, that actually when you're in the experiment, when you're in the lab, like as an artist, I've always found such a thrill being in the experiments, working and like thinking about different ways of thinking of like these photons and quantum, and like that it's so necessary to. So if you think that you're incredibly imaginative and creative and think that science is actually supposed to be analytical and, you know, they actually, the more creative you are, the more inspired you are, that means that would make you a great scientist, and not the other way. And that if you're creative, you'd be a bad scientist. The other, like, you need that imagination and creativity.
Great, you need the both together. I love that message. It's such a great thing, especially when we're taking a look at what we want to study or what we want to do or what we want to change in what we're doing. And that goes for any of us at any age as we're going along, right? Okay, the last thing I'd like to do is, since we're at our end, is I'd like to invite actually everyone to put on their video, because I would love to see us all together on one screen. I think it would be fun to see everybody from all the different countries that we are all in. And I'm going to, in a moment, just have us all wave, because it's been such a great opportunity. Thanks to AIG that we've pulled all this together, but thanks especially to our 4 fabulous speakers for being here, and for everyone who's coming on screen now to ask all the great questions you've been asking. All right, so let's do one wonderful wave to everyone around the world. Thank you guys, while we take a photo, yay. Thank you so much. And I get to officially end Science You Had Me at Hello on this innovation series. And thank you all from everywhere around the world for being here. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Thank you.